Hello, hello, hello. Welcome everybody out there in Facebook land. My name is Judah Hoover. This guy right over here is Josh Weidman, and this is the Build and Grow with Real Estate show. I'm a realtor and a real estate investor. Josh is a hard money lender and a real estate investor. And we come to you here at noon and we talk to you about what's going on in the world of real estate. We are going to be doing a news wrap-up show here today, just talking about a bunch of news stories recently, how they relate to real estate. There's been a lot of buried real estate news recently because of the hot presidential election and a lot of COVID news and other things like that. We're not going to be talking about residential politics. We're not going to be talking COVID. We are going to be talking about real estate.
Yeah, so before we go on here, I want to see if this is my bad connection or your bad connection or ours together, or is it something that it sounds like we're getting every other word from you.
Every other word?
The funny thing is we were on for 10 minutes before we jumped online. But can we get some feedback here from Facebook land? Let us know if we are indeed garbled, and what's our signal like. Yeah, so we're picking up
that's Friday.
Fine. Like we had some messed up technical difficulties on Friday right before we went live on the show, and okay, so Terry's saying everything's fine. All right, no problem.
So it's you. Yeah, Friday was definitely a bad day. I was at a settlement table on Friday for 2.5 hours, fighting over a matter of $800. It was painful, and if I was the actual investor involved, I probably would have handled things differently. However, I was representing somebody else's fiduciary responsibility. I was a fiduciary responsibility for somebody else, and so it meant that I needed to go to the mattresses. So,
gotcha. Yeah, I get it. You know what?
Hey, speaking of references, Josh, obscure real estate and or sales references. Hey, Daryl. Hey, by the way. So Daryl's on with us here today. I'm going to be doing some stuff with Daryl's son, Dallas, here a little bit later on this afternoon. Daryl had a great interview with us 2 weeks ago, and Chris was on with us last week. Now, that interview with Chris, it got a little bit garbled. I played that for my kids. I thought that was an absolutely phenomenal interview. Go back and find that. We'll put that in the comments. It is an absolutely great one to watch. So here's a funny story. I was talking to my nephew. I overheard my nephew talking to his father, my brother-in-law, this weekend. And we all know about house hacking, right? Where you buy one and live in the other, or buy a 4-unit and live in one of them. Or the point is the other things pay for your housing benefits. Yeah. So my nephew, who is in high school still, says to his dad, I want to buy 2 piglets. I'm going to raise 2 piglets. I'm going to auction off one of the piglets. The piglet is going to net me X when it sells, and that will pay for the butchering fees for both. We'll keep the one pig, auction off the other, and it will have paid for the initial cost to purchase and the grain. I'll get a little bit of extra money plus the fun of raising 2 pigs, and Dad, you'll get a freezer full of meat. Can I have the money up front to buy the piglets?
Yeah, that's a no-brainer, right?
First of all, that's how you ask your kid. That's how kids should always ask parents questions. Not, can I have money to go buy, XYZ? This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. This is why you should say yes. I mean, I just loved the negotiation tactic right from the beginning. But second of all, I was like, this is pig hacking. That's what this is. This isn't house hacking. This is bacon hacking. Well, how can you not love it?
Think about this presentation to an investor, right?
Right.
Here's what I need from you. Here's what I'm going to do with what you give me. And here's how I'm going to pay you back and give you a return on your money.
Right.
It's awesome.
Why should I say yes? That's basically, I heard a parenting coach one time say to his kids, he never says yes or no to his kids. Whenever his kids ask him anything, it is always, why should I say yes? It forces them to think about the answer. Even if he's going to say yes.
I like that.
Why should I say yes?
Yeah, that's cool. Okay. All right. So listen, look, we're already 3 days late on the news.
Yeah.
Maybe we should jump in here. What do you think?
Yeah, I say we do it.
Let's do that. Our fabulous weekly news and commentary. This is for through the end of last week. We're going to jump in here. There are some really good news stories that I didn't include, but I think these are pretty darn real estate relevant.
Yes, there's been a lot of news. Editing out what we're not going to talk about is the big one. It has been challenging. And top off the gate is commercial loans are really threatening losses to commercial banks. So even though every economic indicator out there is that interest rates should stay low, if banks are losing money, they have to charge more in interest rates to make that money up. So if you have property with a whole bunch of equity in it, I would encourage refinance sooner rather than later.
Oh, so that's interesting that was your takeaway from that.
That's my takeaway. Interest rates are going up. And lending guidelines might get tightened.
Oh, see, here's what I saw in this. All right, so here's the crux of the situation, right? You have these really densely populated regions of the country in our cities, in our larger cities, where property values have just gotten to the point where it's almost like you're living on another planet, right?
Correct.
Where you can have a condo that somebody buys for $100 million, $100 million. Right?
Right.
So some of these high rises, they're worth billions and billions of dollars. And so what you end up with is an equity group coming together with 20% or 10%, and then they take bank leverage to buy the rest of the building.
Right.
And what has happened in these areas specifically, like they're so expensive that people live there because they have to most of the time, because it's close to their job. And a place like Manhattan, that's where the money is. Well, we just found out with this whole COVID shutdown thing, apparently it's not. And so you have a certain percentage of the populace leaving, which automatically it's going to loosen demand, right? Like it's just going to when you have less people there than you had before. In addition to that, you've got a downturn in retail. And we've got a lot of these social economic problems and issues with the rioting and even just the peaceful petitioning and protesting. Like that's a lot, that's a lot it's a lot to have around you all the time, especially when you're paying such a high number for where you live. It makes it harder to go out and shop.
So I'm missing your takeaway. So go ahead. So yes.
Here's the bottom line. In these areas where you have extremely high property value, now you have really, really depressed values because you have fewer people, you have fewer, businesses.
Right. Commercial property is worth what it can rent for.
Exactly. And so what you're going to have here is, I think, a big opportunity in these markets as investors, because what are the banks going to do? They've got two choices. They got either long pain or big pain, right? They are going to write these things down as losses today as far as they can.
Right.
Big and as far as they can, and then have done with it. And so I think that we're looking at an opportunity in the commercial real estate market to start to buy in areas like this. You're still going to need a lot of money to do it, and it's risky. But I think what it's going to say is we're going to have, for a short period of time, bank write-offs to a point where you might be able to pick up a property that last sold for $1 billion for $500 million, or and like that's real money.
Right. $500 million is still real money. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure. Yeah, I understand it. I see what you're saying. And I think that even in, Lancaster County, There was a couple years ago where we saw there was a loan on an art school in downtown Lancaster. The loan went bad because of the bank floundered. Because the bank floundered, it was bought by a bigger institution, and the bigger institution was more monolithic, and it didn't have as aggressive and creative loan terms and things like that. So I think we're saying the same thing. We're just coming at it. I just skipped this couple steps there. I think that the potential for increased underwriting standards and higher interest rates is potential because of this.
Maybe.
I mean, you also see buying opportunities. That's great.
Let me give you the flip side of your argument there, right? Like the reason that there was increased scrutiny and higher underwriting criteria and higher standards and things like that implemented after this last crash in 2008.
It's because the government got involved and they said, we don't want to get involved again, and therefore you've messed up. So we're going to tell you how to do. Okay.
No, I'm not even going there. I'm saying there was the reason that the bottom is dropping out of commercial real estate is twofold. It's because you have a pandemic economy that was shut down, and you have a social economic shift in society where people no longer feel like they need to live next to their office, right? And so you've got, like, there are two major shifts there. And I think what you end up with is an immediate write-down with the potential that people are going to end up coming back to the cities. Like a very high potential of people returning to these metro areas within a couple years. And I guess what I'm saying is I don't think that these banks are going to do much except say, holy crap, this really sucks. Let's take the write down and then move on and take our profits in the first quarter of next year.
Yeah. I mean, I think that they're going to take a write down but I don't think that they are going to be foreclosing and getting a bunch of these properties dumped back in their lap or anything like that.
No. I think that what you might see is a lot of short selling and forced short selling, where you've got a bank that has, let's say they have there's a reset at 3, 5, and 7 years. And right now we're at 9.5 years. Right. Okay. And like in 6 months from now, like they were last lent, I don't know, $5 million. The last loan was $5 million. They're down for a reset. Well, now they have to reappraise the property. And now instead of being a $5 million loan, they want to do a $2 million loan. Well, they're either going to have to accept that second, do some kind of modification on their primary loan, or do something, or be prepared to take it.
Okay. So what's the takeaway though? What do you? I don't understand what you're saying. The takeaway.
There's like huge opportunity. I think there's going to be humongous opportunities in commercial real estate. You can also already see in the economy. I just read something this morning that there was like an increase of 25% more people were golfing. There were 25% more rounds of golf played, this year than there were a year ago. Like at this point for the entire year, I think that there is a lot of economic activity here. Where unfortunately there were businesses that went under because of the pandemic. I think other businesses are being created and absorbing that.
It's a churn. It's what we talk about when we get to the unemployment numbers is the reason the economy is good, even though the unemployment is stubbornly high, is because there's just a shift in what's happening. We're seeing the same thing in the stock market right now, where people are selling pandemic stocks and buying post-pandemic stocks. So, Lysol was at record high, and now Lysol stock is actually tanking a little bit, still up, but, So, all right, next story.
Yeah, that's it. All right. This is something to be prepared for. That's the only reason for this story is so that you as a real estate investor can be prepared for the coming shift that is going to be coming from the government, right? And that is this. I've seen quite a few stories over the last couple of weeks about the dark side of the real estate boom. And that is that it's becoming less and less affordable for new home buyers, first-time home buyers, to enter into a home. And with all of the, with the rising prices attracting more and more buyers to come in and sell their house instead of rent it out, you've got fewer and fewer affordable rentals or even available rentals for those people looking for housing. I think that this is something that is, number one, it's true, to a certain extent. If your first time home buyer has 15 grand put away to buy a house, that might cover their closing costs. But if they're buying at a median home price, they're not going to have their down payment even close. That's not 5% down. So, I think that what we're looking at is a situation that is kind of a discussion that has to be had here. Like, how do you expect people to save $65,000 or $70,000 to buy their first house?
Well, yeah, I think that's why there's so many first-time home buyer programs out there, FHA, VA, and things like that. And I think that, there's a lot of that for the first-time home buyer. And I think the down payments for secondary homes are coming from the sale of the property that they're moving out of. Is that really the latest number there, 2.7 months supply?
2.7 months supply as of last.
That is crazy. And again, for those of you who don't know, that means that if nothing else went on the market right now, we would burn through the existing houses listed in 2.7 months. Anything under 3 is a hot seller's market. Anything over 6 is definitely a buyer's market. So a buyer's market means that the buyers ultimately are in control because they can say to the seller, well, I don't have to buy your house, I'll buy another house. A seller's market means the seller's in control because they can say, I don't have to accept your offer. I can, go ahead and accept somebody else's offer. And if you don't want to do what it takes to keep this contract together and you're going to beat me up too much on these terms or those terms or what the housing inspection is, I'll just cancel this contract, walk away from it, put it back on the market and get somebody else. So under a 3-month supply is pretty strong. And yeah, I think that housing and the rapid increase in housing is probably going to lead to creation and being the engine that forces inflation. And Daryl was talking about that the other day, that when there's an inflationary cycle coming, you want to own physical assets. Gold and Bitcoin and real estate are great. And what's the best about real estate is it's leverageable. There's tax benefits and you can rent it out. So you can only own gold and watch it go up in value. With real estate, you can own it and rent it out. So you can watch it go up in value while you're also collecting a rent check. So that's why real estate is such an attractive investment.
And I think people saw this and also thought the same thing. Like, look, we can live in this huge house. Or in some cases, our monthly payment can go down, right? Like we get a bigger house at less price right down the street in a nicer neighborhood than when we lived in before. And I think that's what's really pushed the higher end sales and the higher end demand for really nice housing to begin with. And then it was like, okay, housing. And even now, I mean, I see some of the things that are going on and off the market in hours. It's just remarkable to me. You've got a house that would have sat for 90, 180 days 2 years ago that now, it's gone in hours.
Right. Yeah. I'm actually working with somebody right now who wants to sell their $350,000 house and rent it back for a year or two because they don't know where they're going to be. And they don't know if a year and a half from now to 2 years from now, the real estate market is going to be worse. They're willing to capture the gains that they have right now and forgo any upside potential. And they think that an investor will pay them pretty close to full price because they've got a obviously qualified tenant locked in for the first 18 months to 2 years.
That is a really, really interesting play right there.
Yeah. I wouldn't do it, but it's what he's decided to do.
How about this though? You could work it out with the right person. If you that all of the rent for 2 years is paid up front. I mean, you could even work that out and now their down payment just disappears. They get to lock in their loan.
Yeah, there's a bunch of creative ways. Anyway, so the bottom line here is the real estate market is strong. The real estate market is staying strong, and the real estate market might be too strong, too much of a good thing.
Right, exactly. So you might, you should expect almost to see some sort of push, governmental push, I think, for some legislation for more affordable housing, more subsidies, or more high density housing, right?
Yep, it's very potential.
In even better news, JP Morgan announced that because of the continually steady home prices that they're seeing and the steady increase, they have lessened their restraint on or some of their lending requirements or guidelines for many of their consumer loans. So, I mean, essentially that means that more people are going to be able to afford loans.
Loosening underwriting standards. They're loosening underwriting standards. More people are going to qualify for more loans.
Right. Exactly. And you've got really, really consistent consumer confidence. I think that's some good news.
Right. And what that looks like, just, from a boots on the ground perspective is, they might only ask for 1 month's worth of bank statements to show where assets are coming from, or the standard before might have been 3 months, and now they're only asking for 2 months, that kind of thing. So they just work around the edges. But there's when you're dealing with a whole big borrower pool, there's a lot of people who they fall through the cracks and they get denied because of little things. And if you don't have to loosen the standards very much on a big group of people in order for a whole lot more lending activity to happen. It's like, I always use the banana analogy. There's economists that can tell you if the price of bananas goes from 49 cents a bunch to 52 cents a bunch, they can tell you how fewer bananas as a nation we will buy. Now that sounds stupid. We're like, well, I'm not going to buy less bananas, but yeah, you'd be surprised with big number theory. What can happen if you just work around the edges. So if JP Morgan just goes from, hey, you know what, instead of it needing to be 33% for a debt to income ratio, we're going to allow somebody to be at 35 or 38% for a debt to income ratio to qualify for this program or that program. Just that little bit of shift can really adds up and makes some big difference.
Yeah. I mean, and this is surprising news because it was just in August when we heard that Chase Bank they were pulling back, and they said, look, you got to have a 700 credit score, and you're putting 20% down for our conventional, our 30-year fixed mortgage. Right. So, I think this is really an interesting shift in not much time. I mean, you're talking 2.5 months. It's not bad. And that kind of leads into the unemployment numbers. Listen, I was, of all of the doom and gloomers, I was probably the biggest one. Over the summer, I'm like waiting for the crash. It's tomorrow. It's next week. It's, and the more I've looked at these numbers and the more things have really panned out, the truth of the matter is, I think there's going to be some kind of pullback next year in pricing, but I don't know what's going to cause it. I don't know what the trigger is going to be at this point.
Yeah, I think that these unemployment numbers really show, and they continue to trend in a good direction, though they are stubbornly high. It's that churn that we talked about. Yeah. What you're seeing is company A goes out of business, but company B starts up right away. And maybe company B isn't a direct replacement for company A, but they hire a number of employers. Or company A goes, lays 100 people off, and company B decides to hire 25, and company C decides to hire 50, and company D decides to hire 30 or 35. So we're seeing old legacy companies that are too big and not flexible enough. They're shedding people, and we're seeing a lot of young, fresh companies scooping a lot of those individuals and scooping a lot of those people up.
Well, and the interesting thing is that a lot of them are the same type of businesses, and you kind of see the dinosaurs, being pushed off the cliff. Like they were going to die at some point, and now they're just gone. I think that's what you're going to end up seeing in retail with like shopping malls and things like that, they're just going to go away. But those type of jobs, they translate very easily to a lot of other type of, interpersonal interactions. You know what I mean? So you've got somebody that will very easily be absorbed into another part of the economy.
I think that there's a lot of job shifting going on. There are retail stores that are closing, but grocery stores are also hiring so many personal shoppers right now to actually, I'm one of these dinosaurs at 41 that still likes the act of going through a grocery store and walking up and down the aisles. I don't know, call me weird, and looking at something and deciding, do I want that brand or whatever. But I'm seeing more and more people in the grocery store pushing the carts with like 5 or 6 bags on it where they're doing the shopping for other people. So those are two very, let's say, similar jobs and similar pay rate, similar skill level. And the one is kind of replacing and picking up as the other one fades out. I was at Kohl's the other day, and if Kohl's wants to be a sponsor of the Build and Grow with Real Estate show, we encourage them to. I was at Kohl's the other day buying pillows for my bed, and I was just texting, a group of friends, and I was like, man, this line is like really long. Now it ended up that it moved pretty quick, and so I wasn't actually in line that long. And one of my friends was like, oh, I love Kohl's. I shop there all the time online, and they do delivery out to my car. I do curbside pickup. So I think that why we're seeing unemployment stay high and why we're hearing about all these people laying off is there's a whole bunch of new jobs and new things being created. And the derisive thing that people have always said is, well, yeah, but the jobs that are being replaced aren't necessarily analogous, or we're cutting 10 jobs in this industry and we're only creating 1 or 2 in this industry over here. The numbers just don't bear that out. The numbers bear that employment is stubbornly high, but there's a churn. We're basically creating and ending as many jobs all at the same time.
Well, and you know what? I think that kind of plays on the uncertainty of the economy that we're in, where you have, politicians talking about closing things down again with this. I mean, it was kind of startling on Friday. I get an email from my youngest son's school, and all 3 of my kids go to different schools. So it's interesting to get the feedback from all of them. So my youngest son's school, they said, hey, look, we're sending all the kids home with 5 days of classwork just in case there's a shutdown. We don't have any information about a shutdown, but it could. I think that uncertainty, that's real uncertainty. With a governor's decree or a spike in numbers or whatever, all of a sudden we have businesses that like are just starting or on the edge that now, boom, no revenue till, hey, we can't tell you when.
We're definitely coming into an uncertain time where we're not sure because of colder weather and spike in cases what's going to happen. And we said that we weren't going to talk about the economy, or we weren't going to talk about COVID. But here we're kind of dipping into it a little bit. But
it's an important part. It's a reality.
I understand. Yep.
And I'm not making an argument on either side politically. What I'm saying is we live in an uncertain time. Whether there is a fear for to go into a public place and get sick, or whether it's that the fear that the government is going to shut down your business, or the fear that we don't know what's happening. I think that there are probably a lot of these workers that maybe their business shuts down for a short period of time and maybe picks back up. You know what I mean? Like, and has this kind of thing has it been happening? Anyway,
all right. Let's get to Man Crush Monday. I was watching the news yesterday, and when I knew we were talking about the news today, I knew that we were going to see this man's face again in our slide deck. This is really exciting news, by the way.
I know what's so exciting about this. So Judah thinks the story is SpaceX launching a team of astronauts into space. Unfortunately,
this isn't what it is. I thought,
not what it is. I knew you missed it.
Astronauts launched by SpaceX. That's exciting news, dude.
It is very exciting. We will get to that in a moment. Okay. More importantly, our man Elon is so strong and tough that he has even confused the COVID-19 test result, like the testing kit. So apparently he wasn't feeling very good, flu-like symptoms. He takes a COVID test. And while he's waiting, he's like, man, maybe something's wrong with this. He takes another one. One of them comes back positive and one of them comes back negative. So he does it again. He does 2 more. And one of them comes back positive and one comes back negative. So without missing a day of work, he's taking some cold medication and he just keeps going. He just keeps going.
Right.
Even COVID can't stop this man and his dream of putting people on the moon. So,
Josh, it almost sounds like what you're saying is some of these test results and some of these numbers can't and shouldn't be trusted from our beneficent government leaders.
You missed the whole point.
I think that we can definitely trust the COVID numbers, and I think that they are absolutely accurate as reported by the news, and there is no reason to believe the mountains of empirical evidence that would say contradictory.
Well, what is really odd, though, is that Elon said that the 2 positive test results they marked down as positive 2 times.
So that's 4?
No, forget it.
Okay.
All right. So
we'll talk about SpaceX.
Yeah, SpaceX. So SpaceX, just another amazing creation of Elon. He's just crushing it.
So yesterday he launched 4. So the last time he did it, they only went half capacity. The Dragon shuttle, whatever, went to space with just 2 in it. This time they took 4. Up to the International Space Station. A full crew of 4 went off without a hitch, and it's going to take them like 30 some hours. So it left yesterday launch was yesterday at like 7:30. So they'll be docking here, sometime in the middle of the night tonight. Isn't that right? Isn't it 30 hours? Isn't that what it said it's going to take it to get there?
Dude, I don't know. I have no idea. I think it's great. I think us flying outside of our getting out of the dome, is amazing. Yes. I can't believe we actually got out of the dome. I mean, yes. One of these shows, we should do a flat Earth show.
Oof.
Come on.
No. One of these shows, you're gonna trick me into talking about what you think is on the far side of the moon, and we are not gonna have that conversation.
That's awesome. Have you ever seen that show, The Umbrella Academy?
No. Is it good?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, just block off from like Friday at 10 a.m. till Sunday night. You'll watch all the shows. It's amazing. See, cool. Breadcrumbs right there. You want some amazing programming? Umbrella Academy. Incredible.
All right, so we're going to be back on Thursday with an amazing guest, and really looking forward to it. And guys, I'm here. Josh is here all the time for your real estate investing needs. If we can ever do anything for you, all you got to do is reach out and say howdy.
Awesome. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. If you liked the show today, don't forget to like and share it. We'll see you on Thursday at noon. Have a great week. Peace.
See you, everybody.